Well, I think we can get started. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our first ever webinar. My name is Emily Arthur, and I am the Volunteer Coordinator and Executive Assistant for Habitat for Humanity of Fond du Lac County. And I'm going to be the presenter for you this afternoon. First, we are happy to announce that we are settled into our new office space. You will see all of our contact information on the side of the screen here, and we encourage everyone to stop down, say hi. You can give us a call, send us an email, and you can also find us on all of the social media. I'd like to start off with a quick reminder that we are still accepting applications for our 2021 home ownership program through April 2nd. You can check out our website, which is listed here for more information, or please feel free to reach out to us via phone or email with any questions that you might have. Today's webinar will be moderated by our Marketing Vista, Maggie Lamel. She will be monitoring the chat box for any questions that come in along the way, and we will address all of your questions during our Q&A section at the end of this presentation. To start off, I'd like to encourage all of our attendees to please introduce themselves in the chat box. We would really just love to see who is all joining us today. Next, I would like to open this presentation with a question. What do you already know about Habitat for Humanity? And if you are coming into this without knowing anything, what would you like to know about Habitat for Humanity? Please put your answers in the chat box, and this will just help inform us on topics for future webinars. I'll give everyone a few moments to answer. And then finally, just a reminder, as I'm going through this presentation, please submit all of your questions through the chat box. Maggie will be monitoring the chat throughout, and we will try to address all of your questions at the end. And if I don't quite get to your question, or it's something that you don't feel comfortable asking through this platform, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So today is going to be more of a high-level introduction to Habitat for Humanity and what we do for the community. We will be covering what is Habitat for Humanity of Fond du Lac County. We will review our vision and mission statements. We'll take a really quick look at what a Habitat house is like, and then we will dispel some common myths and then wrap up with our Q&A at the end. Habitat for Humanity of Fond du Lac County is part of a global nonprofit housing organization known as Habitat for Humanity International. Habitat for Humanity of Fond du Lac County is dedicated to eliminating substandard housing in our community, and we accomplish this in 3 ways. First, and probably what we're most known for, is our construction, rehabilitation, and preservation of homes. Next, we also advocate for fair and just housing policies at the state and national level. And we provide training and access to resources to our partner families. And part of what this means is that our partner families are given a financial counselor to help them be better prepared to be a Habitat homeowner. We don't want to set anyone up for failure when it comes to Habitat home ownership. So we make sure that all of our partner families are prepared to make that transition into home ownership. Habitat for Humanity operates based off of both our vision statement and our mission statement. Our vision is to see a world where everyone has a decent place to live. And our mission is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. And I'd like to take a moment here to highlight this quote down in the corner. What the poor need is not charity, but capital, not caseworkers, but coworkers. And this really embodies the entire philosophy behind the creation of Habitat for Humanity International and subsequently Habitat for Humanity of Fond du Lac County. Next, let's take a look at what habitat houses are like. Habitat houses all around the world are built according to the same three guiding principles. First, they're simple. Habitat houses are modestly sized. They're large enough for the homeowner family's needs, but they're small enough so that we can keep construction and maintenance costs to a minimum. Next, they're decent. Habitat for Humanity uses quality, locally available, when we're able to, building materials. Habitat house designs will reflect the local climate and culture. So a habitat house in Wisconsin is not going to be the same habitat house that's built in Florida or the same habitat house that's built in South Africa. The local climate and the local culture are going to drive the habitat house design. Further, decent also means that it will reflect the recipient family's needs. So if there's an individual in the family that is, say, wheelchair bound, their house is going to look different than a house that's built for someone who is not wheelchair bound. And finally, they're affordable. Through the labor of volunteers and partner families, efficient building methods, modest house sizes, and our no-profit loans, we make it affordable for low-income families to purchase a habitat house. Simple, decent, and affordable. Every habitat house that's built all around the world is built according to these same three guiding principles. Next, let's move on to a few common myths. First, and probably the myth that I personally hear the most from people, is that Habitat for Humanity gives houses away to poor people. And this is just not true. Habitat for Humanity offers home ownership opportunities to families who are unable to obtain conventional house financing. Because Habitat houses are built using donations, whether that's donations of land, donations of material, donations of labor, that helps keep the mortgage payments affordable. And again, the key word here is mortgage payments. This is not a free house. It is a home ownership opportunity. The next myth is that habitat houses reduce a neighborhood's property values. Many studies have shown that affordable housing has no adverse effect on neighborhood property values. And in fact, oftentimes, a new habitat house has been proven to actually increase the property values in the neighborhood. And it also increases local government tax income through things like the year property taxes and their property taxes. The next myth is that only minorities get Habitat for Humanity houses. Habitat builds houses in partnership with those in need, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of any other category that you could place an individual in. Prospective homeowners just need to meet three criteria. They have to have a need for housing, whether they live in an unsafe neighborhood, maybe the place that they're renting is not being kept up properly. Maybe there's too many people in the household. There's a lot of different categories that would qualify as a need for affordable housing. They have to have the ability to repay the mortgage. Again, this is not a free house. This is a home ownership opportunity. And part of that financial counseling that we discussed earlier is looking at a person's income to debt ratio, making sure that we are setting that person up for success, making sure that they will have the ability to repay this no profit loan that we are offering them. We are not going to set someone up for failure. And finally, they have to have a willingness to partner with Habitat. And a partnership with Habitat can looks different depending on the individual. So a partnership most often is through their sweat equity hours. So that's their volunteer time. A Habitat family is required to help build their house. They have to put volunteer time on the build site. If for whatever reason they cannot complete all of their required sweat equity hours on the build site, they can volunteer in our office performing administrative duties. And if that doesn't work out with their schedule either, we really encourage our partner families to go out in the community and to volunteer, to give back to the people that have given to us, to help this person, this family, achieve the dream of home ownership. The next myth is that Habitat homeowners are all on welfare. And yes, some Habitat homeowners might receive a W-2 Works program, but more often than not, they're just regular working class people. Regular working class people whose income on average will come in at less than half of the local median income in our community. Again, they're regular working class people whose income on average will come in at less than half the local median income in our community. Habitat for Humanity is here to offer a hand up to these people, not a handout. The next myth we'll cover is that you have to be a Christian to become a Habitat homeowner. Habitat homeowners, again, are chosen without regard to race, without regard to religion, ethnic group, without regard to any category you could place a person in. We welcome everyone. In keeping with US laws such as the Fair Housing Act, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, the Americans with Disability Act, and with Habitat's belief that God's love extends to everyone, regardless of their category. Habitat for Humanity is here to offer those people that hand up. Habitat also welcomes volunteers from all faiths or no faith. As long as that person actively embraces Habitat's goal of eliminating poverty housing around the world, you are welcome here. The next myth is that Habitat for Humanity International dictates policy and practices for every local Habitat organization. Local Habitat affiliates are independent, nonprofit organizations that operate within a specific service area. So for Habitat for Humanity of Fond du Lac County, our specific service area is within Fond du Lac County. We do operate within the framework of the Habitat Affiliate Covenant, but again, we are an independent nonprofit organization. So our day-to-day operations, certain policies and procedures, those are all set independently at each individual affiliate. Habitat for Humanity is an arm of the government. Habitat for Humanity is not an arm of the government. Again, we are independent, nonprofit organization. On occasion, we will accept some government funds or other resources to help provide houses for those in need. We will accept these funds as long as they do not limit our ability to demonstrate the love and teachings of Jesus Christ. And often the local affiliates will insert specific guidelines when it comes to accepting government funds and resources to help us avoid becoming dependent or controlled by these government funds. Um, a majority of our project funding comes from regular donors just like you, from individuals within our specific service area, sometimes outside, someone that maybe has lived in Fond du Lac County, someone that has benefited from some of the work that we do. Maybe they move outside of the county, but they're still dedicated to our mission. Um, uh, on occasion, we will write grants for operational costs, but more often than not, all of the funding that we receive for any of the projects that we're doing out in the community, that's all donor funded. And probably the most popular myth about Habitat for Humanity is that we were founded by former US President Jimmy Carter. In fact, Habitat was actually started all the way back in 1976 in Americus, Georgia, by these two lovely people here, the late Millard Fuller and his wife, Linda Fuller. President Carter actually happened to live about 8 miles down the road from Americus. They were living in Plains, Georgia. And at a certain point, after President Carter had left office, the Fullers had reached out to him and invited him to come down to Americus, to the farm, to see their operations, to learn more about habitat. And President Carter and his wife showed up. They had a lovely dinner, a lovely chat with the Fullers, and pretty much immediately fell in love with the mission of Habitat and have been supporters of Habitat for Humanity and volunteers ever since that dinner. So each year they lead the Jimmy Carter Work Project, which is probably where some of the confusion comes from. I'm sure you've seen Jimmy Carter in the news and all across social media. Even last year, he has done the Jimmy Carter Work Week project pretty much every year. I can't think of a year where he has missed it to help build houses and raise awareness of the need for affordable housing around the US. I would like to wrap up today with this statistic. 1 in 8 Wisconsin households spend half or more of their income just on housing. I'm going to repeat that. 1 in 8 Wisconsin households spend half or more of their income just on housing. Habitat for Humanity of Fond du Lac County's mission is more important now than ever. We cannot continue to support our mission without the help of dedicated community supporters just like you. If you are able, please go to our website and make a donation. No matter how big or small, every dollar helps. Maybe you prefer to roll your sleeves up and do the hard work yourself. If you're interested in becoming a Habitat volunteer, please contact me, visit our website. I'm happy, more than happy to share some information with you. And that brings us to the end, to the Q&A section. So let's take a look at the chat box here. Okay, our first question is, how are families chosen to become Habitat for Humanity partners? So step number 1 is going to be filling out our home ownership application. And it is pretty extensive. We do look at a lot of different things. We look at your financial background. We look at, we we do general background checks. It is a pretty lengthy application. It's definitely not something that you can do in 20 minutes. Once we receive all of the applications and we get to the end of the open application period, then all of the applications go to our family selection committee. And the family selection committee goes through every single application, every single page, and they look at who is the most qualified and who has the highest need for the affordable housing. And there's going to be a lot of, an extensive list of information that they're going to be reviewing. And again, that's for every single individual person. Once the family selection committee has made their decision, we will reach out to the partner family that was chosen and just verify that they are still interested in entering into a partnership with us. And that is, when their sweat equity hours start. And basically they get through the build process. And that brings us all the way to dedication day. Let's see. How does a Habitat for Humanity affiliate get started? Oh, that is a question that I think is excellent for another webinar. So we're gonna put that in our ideas box. Why did the Restore close? So there are a lot of different factors that went into the closure of the Restore. The Restore had been struggling for a number of years ahead of the pandemic. And then once, the pandemic hit, the Restore really took a massive hit. And the board of directors got together, they reviewed all the financials, they looked at, the future, and just decided that in the best interest for the nonprofit, which is Habitat for Humanity of Fond du Lac County, and to ensure that we can continue to work towards our vision and our mission, which is safe and affordable housing for everyone. They felt it was in the best interest for the nonprofit to close the doors of the Restore so we could focus on what really mattered, which is our mission. Let's see. How does Habitat decide where to build? And can families ask for a specific location? So our affiliate specifically, we have basically plots of land that were donated to us oftentimes by the cities that they're located in or through some other resource that we were able to acquire these plots of land. And so we decide at the end of every year as we're planning for the next year, which plot of land we're going to build on next. And we're really focused on trying to branch out and actually service the whole county and not just the city of Fond du Lac specifically. So for 2021, we had a plot of land which was in the city of Ripon, and the board of directors had decided that that was going to be where the next build was going to be. Unfortunately, families cannot ask for a specific location. It's just kind of whichever plot of land is the next one in the list. As long as you have been a Fond du Lac County resident, you would qualify regardless of which city we're building in next. It's really just going to be up to the partner family on what's important to them. If they're okay with moving locations, if they're okay with their children ending up in a different school district and things like that. So no, partner families cannot request specific locations, but more often than not, Habitat already has a lineup of different plots that we will be building on. And lastly, how can I get my company involved with Habitat of Fond du Lac? Excellent question. You would get a hold of me as a volunteer coordinator. So if you're looking for like a corporate volunteer day, if you're interested in becoming a sponsor of Habitat, any way that your organization is looking to get involved with our organization, I would be the first point of contact. So let's go to this slide here. So here's all my personal contact information. Again, on the side of the screen is our general contact information. Please feel free to reach out. We're always looking for sponsors and volunteers and those sorts of things. We could not continue to operate as a nonprofit without donors, sponsors, and volunteers. So please reach out and I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I think that wraps up all of the questions. If anyone has any other questions, I will monitor the chat here for the next minute or so. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us in our very first ever webinar. Please keep an eye on our social media. We'll be announcing next month's webinar. We're looking to do these monthly, probably for the next year or so until we get cover all the big topics. So monitor our social media, and we'll be announcing April's webinar coming up in the next week or so, hopefully. All right, so I think we have covered everyone's questions for today. So thank you again for joining us, and I hope you join us again next month for our April webinar. So thank you and have a great